See there. Today is December 12th, 2023. My name is Joe Reingold, the interviewer, and I'm here with Larry Elkin. Hello, Larry. Good afternoon.
Hi, Joe.
So tell us a little bit about your background. Whatever you know about your grandparents, your parents, where do they live, what did they do for a living, etc.
Sure. Well, I guess to start with my father's parents, my fraternal, is it? In any event, they were from Belarus, small town near Minsk called Borisov, which is now, I gather, a city. My grandfather was a farmer, I gather. I mean, the stories get a little fuzzy, and my grandmother was the mother of 9 kids, eventually. But he came to America in the early 1900s and left my grandmother and, at that point, 2 kids, my father and my aunt, until my grandfather got established, and in any event, sent them enough money so that they could get to America. I don't know how she did it. She took a 1-year-old and an infant, another infant, and traveled across Europe, and then to America. So she was a tough lady, little lady, really about 4'10", sweet. They settled in New York, in the Lower East Side, where my father grew up. My grandfather was a custodian for the downtown Talmud Torah, and he was an Orthodox Jew, very Orthodox actually. Prayed every morning and to lay tefillin, and really very, very religious. Actually, his kids, all 9 of them, none of them really became that religious. I have one uncle who was a part of Jewish education in New England, but besides him, they all broke away, so to speak, from the Orthodoxy. On my mother's side, my grandfather was a tailor, and he had 2 brothers. They got to America somewhere around 1900 as well. And they initially settled in Omaha, Nebraska. And in fact, they homesteaded for a while in western Nebraska, Cherry County. And lasted, I guess, a year or 2, I'm not sure how long. But it was a little tough. So they ended up going back to Omaha, where they split up. They're 3 brothers. They split up. One brother went to Edmonton, Alberta, where he was a farmer, a wheat farmer. And my other uncle ended up manufacturing women's clothing in Omaha. And my grandfather worked emigrated to New York. Actually, my mother was born in Omaha. And so they immigrated to New York, and that's where she grew up. And they met. My father and my mother met in the Catskills at I don't remember the name of the hotel, but it was the thing at that point. They then got married in 1932, I guess it was. Settled in the Bronx, New York, and I came along in 34, and my father was in a business where he had regular customers, a route of regular customers, where he sold coffee and tea and anything anybody wanted. So, however he could do it to make a living, he did okay. And in 1944, I guess it was, he decided he wanted to become a chicken farmer. He was 40 years old. I have no idea how this got into his head, but he bought a chicken farm. He and my uncle stayed in New York to run the coffee tea business, and my father went out to manage the farm. It lasted 2 years. My mother hated it. She was taken away from her family, her friends, and so it didn't go well. Although I think my father really liked it, my mother wouldn't let him stay. So we moved back to the Bronx, which is really where I grew up. Had a younger brother, 6 years younger than I am. Went to the public school system in New York, went to the Bronx High School of Science, and interestingly enough, there are some people here at the Legacy who also went to the Bronx High School of Science. And in fact, when we got here in 1974, we were at a cocktail party. And in the cocktail party, we figured there were 5 graduates of the Bronx High School of Science. So it was one of those weird things. I went to school in upstate New York, Alfred University, a very small liberal arts school. Majored in economics and business. Went to law school for a year, decided that was not for me, and ended up in the Army. I had an ROTC commitment, which I extended to 2 years, so that I got a shot at being sent to Europe, which I was. I was stationed in Germany, and the Army was a fabulous experience for me. Got me away from everything I knew, how to act on anything that I knew. Let's see, from there I came back, went into the retail business. I was looking for a job, and somebody sent me to Gimbel's in New York, and they hired me, and it was totally naive, no career issues in my mind, just go get a job. And while at Gimbel's, they decided, or the personnel director had decided that I should be in the personnel division. So I went into the personnel division, and it became my career. And I was at Gimbel's for about 5 years or so, and then was recruited by Macy's, and stayed at Macy's for, let's see, I don't remember, 12, 14 years, something like that. And I became the head of executive development for Macy's New York. And from there, I got recruited to come down to Neiman Marcus, which was really a totally different experience. First of all, moving from New York area to Dallas with 2 young kids, and going from moderate price department stores to Neiman Marcus, and that whole sensibility of Neiman's, especially then because Stanley Marcus was still running it, and it was very much an upscale business. Personally, we had 2 kids, 2 boys.
How did you meet your wife?
You
didn't tell us that part.
Wow,
Yeah. How did you meet her?
Okay.
Unless you don't want to tell
It's a good story.
Oh, okay.
Linda must have told you the story, actually, but I'll tell my side of it. Mm-hmm. When I was at Gimbel's, I was working in a store in Long Island, and I was the personnel director of the store, and I had 2 women working for us in the HR area, and they were both of a certain age, 2 women who were determined to get me married. I mean, I was 27 years old at that point. That was late to be married in those days. And so they conjured up a scheme to get Linda to come up and work in the personnel office for the Christmas holidays. And so she did. And so that's how I really got to know her. And but I couldn't date her because she was working for me, and she was an employee of the store. So we parted company, but I knew I was going to take her out. In fact, I really knew I was going to marry her. I just had to get to do it. And I was one of these guys in that era who found it very difficult to say, "I love you, I want to marry you," because you had to just a breakthrough, I guess. In any event, we started dating in March and got married the following March. So it was terrific, just terrific. I remember I went on vacation with one of the managers in the store at Gimbel's, and we went to Puerto Rico, which was a very desirable spot at that point for vacations. And I remember having a conversation with him and saying to him, you know, I met the girl I'm going to marry. And he knew who she was. And so, in any event, I was declared it at that point. And Linda is, you know, terrific, well organized, kept our life going very well. Also, to her great credit, she's a saver. So we had enough money to do the things we wanted to do.
Was it difficult to decide to come to Dallas and leave
Well,
everything
when I
behind?
first got the call from a recruiter, actually it was somebody who had been the personnel director at Neiman's years before, I told him, no, I don't think we want to go to Dallas, Texas. And so, fine. So I got home, I remember talking to Linda about it, and I said, you know, I got this call today. And she said, well, you know, maybe you ought to really look into it, because it's a, you know, reputable store. We need to make a change in our life anyway. We felt we were really in a rut. And so I got hired. I remember interviewing with Stanley Marcus in the office in New York. And it was an interesting conversation. He really wasn't talking about my experience at Macy's, but talking about what kind of things I was interested in life and what kind of things I did. And he was talking around the job itself. And his associate kept bringing in little cups of demi-tasse coffee. And so I would have them as well as he would. I realized I had to go to the bathroom. And so in the middle of this interview, I had to jump up and get to the bathroom. So, but he hired me anyway. So I was at Neiman's for 20 years. I was the head of HR for Neiman's. For a while, I also ran stores and I did some of the workrooms and managed some of the workrooms. It was a great experience. It was a terrific company. And I was lucky, as I said, to get there in a period where it was still family run. And so it's different now. It's a corporation with all the pressures and difficulties of being part of a corporation.
What kind of things did you and Linda get involved in when you moved here? Jewish or secular?
Well, we joined Temple Shalom, and primarily because we wanted the kids to go to Hebrew school, and also as a way to meet people. And we stayed members of Shalom until a couple of years ago when we moved here, and so we terminated then. I wasn't a joiner, so I didn't get involved with much at that point. I was totally concentrating on work and that kind of thing. One of the things that we spent a lot of time on was travel. And beginning in the mid-'80s, we started traveling to Asia and all over the place. We went to some very weird places. The weirdest was Bhutan, which turned out to be a great experience. It was in the middle of the Himalayas, beautiful, beautiful country, untouched by the West. People who all wore this native costume, and it was part of their life. And they had just introduced television to this country, literally days before we got there. So they were really pristine, I guess. There were no cars, well, I shouldn't say none. Very, very few cars. And people, regular people didn't own cars. So it was very much a Buddhist country, steeped in the Buddhist tradition, and really lovely people. So that was our great experience, the travel part. What am I leaving out here?
Now, when did you finally retire, and what did you do after that?
I retired in the early 90s, mid-90s actually, and I had two criteria when I retired. One was that I wanted to work with my hands, and the other was I didn't want to get involved being responsible, other than my family, for anybody. I didn't want any administrative work and nothing like that, because I had done so much of it in my work life. What was I saying?
You wanted to work with your hands. What
Work
did you
with
do?
my hands,
Yeah.
yeah.
What did you end up doing?
So I started out working for Habitat for Humanity, and I had I had no experience at all in construction work, but we had a group of people that showed up twice a week, and I learned how to install windows and doors and framing and all kinds of stuff. And it's a great organization, does wonderful work, especially terrific when you met the families that you would work, they had to work with you to gain some sweat equity in the business, in the house. From there, I started taking some classes, sculpture classes, with an artist in Richardson, and turned out I had some skill, amazingly enough. And from there, I went to Brookhaven College, where there was a sculpture studio, and they had a lot of equipment, and they were happy to see me apparently, and let me use the equipment. So I ended up doing sculpting there, working with wood, clay, stone, metal, a little bit of everything. I did that for a lot of years, till my hands started to cramp up on me when I was doing it. So I had to retire from that. So that was pretty much my retirement years, is my retirement years.
So when did you come here to move to the Legacy?
In, what was 3 years ago? It will be 3 in March, so it was 81, I guess. Just as it opened.
Right.
We were here a couple of months after it opened, and we were amongst the first people to move in. So yeah. And this has been the best move we could have made. We were ready to do it. I was, when we moved here, I was 86, 85. And I was slowing down, starting to feel my age. And and this turned out to be perfect, because if we had stayed in our house, I think we would have, especially because of COVID, we would have been more and more isolated. And being here prevented that from happening. We meet a lot of people, obviously a lot of socialization. So yeah, it was a good move for us, for sure.
In all your years of your business experience, can you think of somebody that might have been, or would you consider a role model?
A role model.
Or even just in life, a
Yeah,
role model?
Yeah. Well, Stanley Marcus was a very interesting man. He was, in many ways, a marketing genius. But he had this ability to know everybody and be friends with everybody. He had a couple of secretaries working for him, and he kept them busy just typing his notes to people. He had this correspondence that was all over the world. It was really something, and he had this great smile that encompassed you when he turned it on, it was really something to see. So yeah, he was terrific.
So you've been here a while. How has Dallas changed from when you got here until now? What have you seen? What kind of changes?
Well, we got here in '74, and it was, in a sense, a small town still. I remember going to a party at, I don't remember whose house, somebody's house, and I met this guy, and he said to me, "Gee, how come I never met you before?" He said, "I know everybody." And he did. He knew a lot of people. It gets reinforced when we moved here because the connections between people are amazing. I mean, I know there's a guy here named Larry Goldman who knows everybody.
Yes,
and
he
everybody,
does.
yeah, everybody knows. But it's that kind of thing. And there's a lot of interrelationships, cousins and uncles and aunts and God knows what. So, yeah, it's kind of nice.
No regrets moving to Dallas, Texas?
Oh, no.
You or your wife?
No.
No.
No, we made a life here that was really terrific. We were very fortunate in that regard. Yeah, it was terrific. It is terrific.
If you can pinpoint something, what would you say you are the most proud of?
I think what I'm most proud of is I was able to, I guess, absorb and understand to some degree the culture of the business at Neiman's I'm talking about now, and was, I think, useful in expanding it or keeping it going, said better, during the time when I was there. And I was fortunate, too, that I worked for a lot of different principals in the business, and I was able to establish a relationship with them that let us continue to be focused on the welfare of people and keeping good people and expanding others. So, yeah.
Okay.
How's that sound? I don't know.
That sounds great.
Okay.
Before we end, is there any other story or anything else you'd like to share with us? What are your kids doing
Okay.
right now?
Our oldest son, Peter, works at Toyota, and he's involved in IT programs there, and starting to get into use of AI at Toyota. So he's got an interesting life ahead of him. It's been interesting to begin with. Dan, who are younger, Peter's 59, and Dan, our younger one, is 56. He lives in California now, in Northern California, in a small town called Grass Valley, which is used to be a haven for hippies. There's still some residue of it there. In any event, he's been an English high school teacher for the bulk of his career. But a few years ago, mainly because of the COVID problems, when they had to go to remote teaching, he lost track of the kids, and it was not good. And so in any event, he was burnt out anyway, and he ended up working for the South Yuba River Conservatory. Yuba River is a river that runs from Truckee, California to Sacramento and out into the ocean. And it's a nonprofit. He's doing marketing and communications and general stuff. So it's a transition for him, but he's doing well with it. Both, as I keep saying, they're upright, they're good citizens, and they're terrific kids.
Very good.
Yeah.
I guess they did okay, mostly growing up in Dallas, right?
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
they had their moments. But yeah, they did okay. Dan went to Green Hill, Peter went to Richardson High School. I think he had a tough time in high school, but survived it, and, did okay.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. We appreciate it.
Yeah, my pleasure.
And continue enjoying living here at the
Yeah,
Legacy.
yeah.
It's wonderful. Thank you.
Okay, thanks.